Before we really start the interview, I just wanted to mention this is my first visit to Cluj, first visit ever. Very impressed with your city. Cannot wait to come back. Cannot wait to spend more time here. I want to bring my family back. Really enjoying visiting Cluj. So again, for all the Clujeni out there, my compliments.
Thank you very much. You arrived in Romania in July 2020.
Yes, right.
Now, after a few months, you have some impression to share about how do you view our country? What do you think our strengths are, or maybe fields where we have to improve?
I think, well, first let me just say, this is an amazing country. My family and I are very blessed to be here. We're very happy to be here. We've enjoyed it. Despite the pandemic, we've still managed to get out and see parts of your country. We want to see a lot more. That's why this trip is so great. I got a chance to come out and see more of Romania. I think this is a country with a fantastic future. You have many, many strengths. You have beautiful and bountiful natural resources. You have excellent human capital here. I mean, Cluj is a good illustration of this. We have 10 universities. Many people frequently remind me how many Romanians are living and working elsewhere in Europe. It's true, but I think that's a testament to the strength of your education system, that Romanians can find good work in the rest of Europe. It shows how the high quality that you've achieved here. So, the people are friendly. This is a strong American ally. We have an excellent security relationship. We have many other areas where we work together. And so, all in all, I'm very, very positive about Romania. Are there challenges here? Yes, there are challenges here. There are challenges in many countries. But I can clearly see that Romania has benefited from being a member of the European Union and of NATO, and your country is moving ahead.
Thank you very much. The United States of America have now a new president, Mr. Joe Biden, a new administration. The new administration finds America, but the entire world, in quite troubled times. Many urgent issues seem to press the agenda, like the pandemic, the maybe social unrest, conspiracy theories that sometimes gain unprecedented momentum, and the need for social justice and social healing. What direction would you advise us, Romanians, to follow and to expect from the new administration in the foreseeable future?
Well, it is true, as you mentioned, that we're living in difficult times, perhaps globally. The administration, as any administration right now, would have its hands full meeting all these challenges. It's clear also, that in our last election, which just happened in November, the United States was divided, to some extent still divided, of course. You can see if you watch the news, we all can. It is a real tragedy that some people lost their lives as we change administrations. What is important, I think, though, at the end of the day, is that on January 20th, we did see a peaceful exchange of power, and those that did commit violence are being investigated and prosecuted. I think, we're living at a time, again, where a lot of global difficulties and a lot of divisive attitudes in society. I mean, what I see everywhere, especially with social media, which is a great tool, but also seems to be good at dividing people at the same time. Openness and dialogue and tolerance and compromise are all really important for democracy. I think you've seen that here in Romania, and certainly we see that back in the United States. Both of our countries have gone through some very difficult times. You had to survive decades of communism, which is something it was still hard for me to imagine, and I lived through some of it. I'm not so young. I remember the Cold War, and I remember what news we were getting at that time. 100 years ago, the United States had a civil war. I think, so both of our countries have overcome serious obstacles and will continue to have the strength to overcome serious obstacles. So I think we can expect a very workmanlike and diligent approach from the new administration. They've made clear their intent to try to address some of these problems. And hopefully we'll see, as an American, just speaking as an American citizen, hopefully we'll see Americans come a little bit closer to each other again under the new administration.
Thank you. I'd like to ask some questions about the USA-Romania relationships. As you said, we have a good bilateral cooperation. In fact, it's a strategic Romanian foreign policy, the relationship with the USA. So the two countries have economic, security, cultural connections for many, many years. And the last year or so, as I see it, an increasingly close cooperation between our countries. In what fields do you see American-Romanian cooperation develop on medium or long term?
Well, thank you for that. As you say, I mean, we have a very strong strategic partnership between our two countries. One thing I have been struck by just in my first 6 months here is just how close and deep this relationship goes. We've had a strong relationship through, on our side, Republican and Democratic presidents. Romania is a strong strategic ally, and it's very easy for me to see why, because I think Romanians think a lot like Americans. They value the same thing as Americans. It makes it very easy for us to work together. We have every reason to expect that the new administration will continue this strong relationship going ahead. The security relationship between our two countries is exceptionally strong. Tomorrow I'll be at Câmpia Turzii, where the U.S. Air Force and the Romanian Air Force will be having an event to commemorate or mark the deployment of new U.S. assets at the base and continue to deepen and strengthen and broaden our partnership. And I think also where we look ahead, one area we'd like to see the partnership deepen has always been commercial. And there is something that I've been working on and our mission's been working on very, very hard for the last few months and continues to work on with your government. And that is a project, an agreement really, to bring in American engineering expertise to help rehabilitate and expand the Cernavodă nuclear plant, which is down near Constanța. This is going to be a major, major strategic investment for both of our countries. It's going to bind us even more closely together. And so I think we can expect to see the relationship continue to strengthen whoever's in power. And it is, in a way, good, I suppose, that we have a new administration in Washington and we have a new government here that's looking at reform and is looking to kind of review the relationship and see where to take it forward. So really good feeling on both sides, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we can accomplish the next few years.
I think also the rule of law, for example, is very important for Romanians,
I'm glad
citizens and politicians, and everybody thinks about how could we do better?
Yeah, I think that's very true. I mean, that's something we're very focused on at the embassy. I mean, it's one of our top priorities. We have specific interests in rule of law, but then in general, we do seek to help your government and Romania as a whole move forward in this area. I think Romania has already shown in the recent past it has the capacity to address rule of law questions. It can be a challenge, of course, but you have the capability, you have the expertise, and you have the willingness to do it. And certainly we will be there encouraging it all along the way and hoping to see some good results.
You talked about investment and how USA would involve in different projects. And I'm thinking, for example, about the military or air base in Câmpia Turzii, or there is this plan that the former ambassador, Mr. Adrian Zuckerman, talked about that highway that would link maybe Constanța from Romania, Black Sea, to Gdansk, Poland, Baltic Sea. What do we expect? We Romania want and love highways. We don't have so many.
Right. Well, I mean, certainly, I think everyone would say infrastructure is a priority here. And the new government has made it very clear that building more infrastructure is an important priority. Your mayor here in Cluj has prioritized building infrastructure to good effect, and we've seen some success there. So, yes, we are very interested to see the realization of this. I think the name for this project is Via Carpathia, which is supposed to travel through the Carpathians. We are working with your government and others to see how we can quickly bring this about. Don't have any more details for you, but it is definitely on the agenda. I do believe, however, that the basic outlines of the project have been in existence for years. And so I think it's really a question of implementing and funding, not so much planning it, because I think that the plan has already been laid. We do hope to see some action on this soon. And so we'll be engaging on that. You mentioned Câmpia Turzii and some of the investments there. There are some potential future investments that are pending approval in Congress, but it is true that we have made some investments there. And this is part of a larger program the United States has been following to invest funds on defense infrastructure in some of our newer NATO allied countries. And Romania sits on the Black Sea. The security of the Black Sea region is extremely important. It's something that's getting a lot more attention from NATO and certainly in Washington. And so the investments we're talking about here at the base are just a small part of that overall plan. And so we hope to see more of that going forward. But again, the strategic partnership on the security side, very, very strong. The interoperability of the two militaries, very, very good. And so I think you can expect to see more of this. But there will be more details at some point on Câmpia Turzii, which we'll be happy to share when we have them.
Thank you very much. If I may, I think you have a very strong point coming to Romania because from what I read, you have a very consistent experience in the Balkans, in the Middle East, East European countries. Yeah. And how do you envision, as a representative of American administration, the role that Romania can play in this context, in Eastern Europe, in Balkans, maybe security, maybe economical?
Well, thank you. And thank you for the question. I have indeed spent the longest and maybe most significant parts of my career in this broader region, I like to say. Never quite sure, of course, because Romania is part of the Balkans, but then also not part of the Balkans. And, of course, where we're sitting today, you could argue is really not part of the Balkans.
We are at the crossroads.
The crossroads, right.
That's our history.
That's the way it is. And that's what makes it so interesting and makes it such a rich country, I think. We do see some very positive trends in the Western Balkan region in the last few years that I would highlight. We've seen the infamous name issue between North Macedonia and Greece finally resolved, which many people thought would never happen. And it was a huge, huge boost, I think, to the entire region when that did happen. And we saw Macedonia then advance and become a NATO member and at least accelerate its path to the European Union membership. We've seen Serbia and Kosovo make real progress on concrete issues. And I had the pleasure of serving in Kosovo at the time that it became an independent country. And I can tell you that if you, at that time, if you could see today how those two countries are learning to at least solve problems and get along with each other better, not perfect, but much better than what it was, again, a very positive trend. So I think we see some good things. And it's important because we talk about security, we talk about the Black Sea region, the rest of the neighborhood here, keeping the rest of the neighborhood politically and economically stable and independent, I think is important for that security. So it's not just a military question, of course. Yeah. So what can Romania do? First, I think Romania can use its voice in the EU, in NATO, in international institutions to push and keep them focused on problem solving in this region and keep the positive momentum going forward. I think that's a very important role that Romania can play. Second, we can talk a little bit about energy. You are positioned in Romania to become an exporter of energy, whether it's offshore oil and gas resources, whether it's electricity from a refurbished and expanded Chernivtsi plant. Energy independence and reliable supply of energy is very important for political and economic stability. And I think that's something that Romania can contribute to the region and will in the next coming years. Finally, I'll go back to rule of law, something you mentioned earlier. I think Romania has shown it's a way for countries that are nearby, that are in some ways similar, a template, if you will, for how to move forward in rule of law issues. I know that there are many Romanians that are frustrated with the state of things here, but the truth is you've already shown great aptitude here to go after high-level corruption, criminal behavior. I think the new government is dedicated to rejuvenating that fight. I think you can set an example for the region by showing this. I will tell you, I've been in certain countries, which I will not name now, where to even see the kind of capacity in law enforcement, to see the track record of prosecutions, to see these things, I wouldn't dream that it would be possible in some of these places, but it's possible here. And that's why I'm optimistic about Romania's future, whatever the present challenges may look like. And I think you can serve an example in the region.
Thank you very much for the encouragement. Yeah. And one last question about the pandemic. The world owes to USA 2 effective vaccines against COVID. Still, America is one of the countries most hit by the pandemic. And USA is a global leader, and all the free world, to use this expression, still looks at Washington for direction and leadership. So what will do American administration in the months to come, internally and globally as well, to tackle this issue? Because we all suffer from it. Big challenges for everyday people lives, for companies, for countries, and I would say even international relations.
It has been a big challenge. First, let me just convey my condolences to the families of those who have succumbed to COVID. Express my deep appreciation for all the people who have helped us through this pandemic on the front lines, the healthcare workers, the emergency personnel, delivery people, the military, people who work at stores, store workers. So many grocery workers came to work when people needed to eat. It was really amazing to see. And so many other folks as well. And so just a thank you to all those folks, the condolences to those who've lost loved ones. We have lost a member of our embassy community to COVID, which was very, very sad recently, and we're still dealing with that. And as for how the pandemic was dealt with, will be dealt with, I'm not a public health expert. I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment on the efforts to combat the pandemic either in the U.S. or in Romania. I will say, I think everyone's looking forward to a better 2021. It would be hard for it to be worse on some levels, I suppose. The vaccines do show promise. Hopefully they will be effective. Hopefully they'll be available, and hopefully we'll get them used sufficiently to combat this. There are, as we've all seen, some supply problems right now. Setting aside the details of that, it seems to me that it was inevitable. I mean, it's just a product that's in high demand, and you almost can't produce enough of it. But I think those problems will be overcome, and in short order, this will be even more widely available, and we'll be able to see more protection against the pandemic. I will also say, this is a crisis is unlike anything we've seen in our lifetime. It's a kind of a unique moment. When I was growing up, my grandparents would talk about the World War II years, which, were notable years in America. This is not the same thing, of course, but maybe it's, in a sense, a psychological equivalent for those of us that are going through it. Everyone will remember this, and it'll change everyone's lives forever. But only through working together, as our two countries do and as other countries do, are we going to be able to finally overcome this and put it away. And hopefully we will all be able to do that. We need to rebuild our economies, create a better future for our children. You have an opportunity here in Romania to do so, and the EU is going to be, has been, I think, very generous with the recovery funds, and certainly it's a priority that they're well spent to rebuild and move forward. We have the same challenges in the United States, and let's hope for the best. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor. Thank you for your visit.
Thank you.